Welcome to the channel where family secrets aren't just revealed, they're exposed in all their raw, shocking reality. Here, every story uncovers hidden betrayals, simmering anger, and twisted alliances that will leave you questioning who you can truly trust. Imagine the tension when whispered secrets collide with innocent hearts, when loyalty is tested, and the lines between love and betrayal blur beyond recognition. From the subtle manipulations of a charming spouse to the devastating confrontations that shatter families, each story pulls back the curtain on the hidden emotions, shocking choices, and unimaginable betrayals that define a household. You'll experience the raw, unfiltered truth behind every decision, every strained smile, and every silent glance. If you love intense family drama, revelations that cut deep, and the suspense of watching twisted webs of lies unravel, you've just found your new obsession. It started with a comment, offhand but sharp enough to cut through everything. "Get out! Adopted kids aren't allowed." The words echoed in the quiet of the room, sinking into bones in a way that revealed more than just cruelty. They exposed the invisible walls of prejudice that had always surrounded the family. What seemed like an ordinary afternoon shattered into fragments of suspicion, unspoken grudges, and the weight of years spent pretending that everything was normal. Every glance at the husband felt heavier, laden with questions he would never answer, and every polite smile in the living room masked the tension that had been simmering under the surface for decades. The truth had been there all along, hiding behind mundane routines and carefully orchestrated appearances. It was in the way decisions were made without explanation, in the hushed phone calls that stopped when someone entered the room, and in the subtle shifts of tone when family gatherings turned into silent competitions for approval. The husband, who always seemed harmlessly distracted, had his own secrets. Quiet manipulations that bent loyalties, undermined trust, and placed innocent hearts in the crossfire. Pieces of conversations overheard in the kitchen began to make sense, connecting dots that were always there but ignored. Hidden bank accounts, veiled threats masked as jokes, and choices that hurt more than they should. The adopted child became the unwitting center of a storm, a symbol of what the family would not accept and yet could not openly confront. The prejudice, so casually voiced, ignited something dark and deliberate. Strategies formed silently, alliances shifted, and opportunities to reveal the truth multiplied. There was no overt confrontation at first, just subtle movements in the shadows, laying bare the hypocrisies and lies that had been carefully stitched into the family fabric. Every calculated action exposed another layer of betrayal. How the husband quietly steered blame, how loyalties were bought with promises and hushed threats, and how the very people trusted most were willing to destroy what should have been protected. By the time the truth finally surfaced, the family's foundation had cracked irreparably, leaving shock and disbelief in its wake, and the once invisible web of deceit became impossible to ignore. The cost of loyalty had been measured, and revenge tasted inevitable. Every gesture in the house carried weight. Every whispered secret felt like it could topple the carefully balanced world that everyone pretended to share. Smiles were strained, polite words carefully measured, but beneath it all, the currents of deception ran deep. It wasn't just what was said, it was what wasn't. The pauses, the looks exchanged when no one was watching, the way certain rooms seemed to hum with tension, even when the television played innocuous shows. The husband's charm, once comforting, revealed its sharp edge in private moments. Subtle manipulations, hidden comments, and quiet insistences bent loyalties, pushing people toward alliances that benefited him and left others isolated. Every gathering became a test, a silent negotiation of trust and power. The family pretended, as families do, that love alone guided their actions, but the truth was far darker. Emotions no one admitted began to leak through cracks. resentment disguised as humor, desire tangled with rivalry, and fear hiding behind politeness. Secrets that had been buried for years resurfaced, whispered in hushed tones or left in the gaps between sentences, each revelation more explosive than the last. And the husband, with his calm demeanor, orchestrated much of it, watching reactions carefully, letting the chaos unfold while keeping his own hands clean. It became impossible to tell where loyalty ended and betrayal began. Choices once thought clear turned murky when every smile could hide sarcasm, every compliment a veiled threat. Alliances shifted with the slightest provocation, trust became a currency, and every word weighed more than anyone dared admit. The family's hidden prejudices, private grudges, and quiet manipulations all collided in a storm of tension that no one could escape. The most devastating truths weren't shouted, they were discovered in the silence, in the small betrayals, in the deliberate omissions that revealed the real character of those closest. The husband's involvement in every fracture became undeniable, a quiet architect of pain, controlling the story from behind a facade of care and charm. When the masks finally slipped, the room was left heavy with betrayal, and the line between love and hate had dissolved entirely. And in that silence, the reckoning waited. The confrontations started quietly, almost imperceptibly, but they carried the weight of everything that had been simmering for years. Innocence collided with cruelty in ways that left the house tense, heavy with words unspoken and glances that cut deeper than any confession. Children, once shielded by laughter and routine, became unwitting witnesses to the fractures everyone tried to ignore. Questions asked in passing, casual observations, even small refusals to comply revealed truths no one wanted to face, and the husband's subtle hand in every disruption became undeniable. Manipulations that had seemed harmless now peeled back like layers of an onion, each more corrosive than the last. A suggestion here, a slight there, and suddenly loyalties twisted, alliances broke, and the youngest voices in the home felt the sting of adult cruelty for the first time. The husband watched with that same calm detachment, measuring reactions, planting doubts, and shaping the chaos into a form of control that no one could resist. Secrets were no longer whispers. They were actions, small betrayals that accumulated until even the simplest family interactions were loaded with tension. The choices forced upon everyone were brutal in their subtlety. Should a child obey the husband's quiet commands, sacrificing trust elsewhere, or speak out and risk the wrath of an authority no one dared challenge? Should loyalty to blood outweigh the need to protect those most vulnerable, or should the truth finally break through the carefully maintained masks? Each decision, however small, reshaped the family in ways that would be impossible to undo. And through it all, the husband's influence remained pervasive, his charm a thin veneer over calculated cruelty. The way he twisted compassion into guilt, patience into compliance, and love into obligation left scars no one could ignore. The household, once a place of assumed safety, became a battlefield of hidden truths, raw emotions, and unspoken resentments. When the reckoning finally arrived, there was no fanfare, only the heavy realization that the family would never be the same. And in that silence, the consequences of every manipulation were waiting. The twists came slowly at first, subtle and almost imperceptible, until the threads of manipulation began to unravel, revealing a web more tangled than anyone could have imagined. Every conversation, every small omission, suddenly made sense in hindsight. The husband's careful facades, the way he navigated smiles and silences, had been a calculated performance all along. He had quietly steered events, planting seeds of doubt, stoking resentments, and keeping the family off balance while hiding the depth of his own betrayal. Those closest, once trusted without question, were not immune to his influence. Secrets, long thought buried, surfaced at the worst possible moments, exposing hidden alliances and calculated deceptions. Anger simmered beneath the surface, fragile bonds strained to the breaking point, and raw emotion erupted where control had once reigned. Every revelation carried a sting, each more devastating than the last, until the family was forced to confront truths that had been ignored or denied for years. The most shocking betrayals came in quiet, unassuming forms. Text messages left unsent, casual remarks dropped at the wrong time, favors promised and withdrawn. Each act, seemingly insignificant on its own, compounded into a weight that could no longer be ignored. The husband's involvement was everywhere, subtle yet undeniable, orchestrating pain while presenting an image of innocence. His charm had been armor, his affections strategic, and the family, blind to the game being played, had been caught in the currents of his deceit. Even the smallest gestures became reminders of what had been lost. Trust, safety, the simple certainty that what was spoken in confidence would remain private. Children, partners, siblings, all had been drawn into a network of lies and misdirection, and by the time the truth was fully visible, hearts were fractured, and the quiet tension that had pervaded the house exploded into inevitability. Every betrayal, every hidden motive, every carefully concealed truth pointed to the same conclusion. Revenge was no longer a choice, but a necessity. And in that moment, it became clear that the cost of exposure would be paid by everyone who had ever pretended to be innocent. Thank you for watching and diving into the world of hidden betrayals, shocking secrets, and unforgettable family drama with us. If these stories of raw emotion, twisted loyalties, and intense confrontations kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story, where every secret, every manipulation, and every shocking twist is brought to light. Share your thoughts in the comments. Whose betrayal shocked you the most? Stay tuned because the next story promises even more twists, raw emotions, and family secrets you won't see coming.